Comforted Man here, and everybody's ears have just exploded. I've got Framed to the Gleam the Fled with me. How's it going?
All right.
You like your new name? That's your name now. Flamey! I'll just call you Flamey because it's such a mouthful, from the grave to the flame. So you wanted to talk about a number of things which were interesting, and so we're gonna talk about that, I guess, and that will be what we do. What was your first thing that was on your list here?
Where is it? Oh, there's it.
He's like, I don't know.
Oh, I had to back.
What kind of show am I running here? I don't
know. Okay, there it is.
Evidence and evidence decay, or did you? Yeah. Then we'll go to the logic. Okay. So, okay. Well, what about what's on your mind about evidence and or evidence decay? What? Anything specific or just in general? What did you?
It could be taken both ways, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Sure you did that video on, I don't know, 3 months ago, I think it is. 4 months, 20 years ago.
Whenever it was. I don't even know what video you're talking about. So.
Like, the last one's the one before that. So.
Well. Okay, so with evidence, I guess we would have to decide what we mean by that, because it might mean different things to different people. So rather than just go to a dictionary and appeal to definition, when you hear the word evidence, what do you think of? What does it make you think about?
Something tangible.
Okay.
Just go on. If I'm not looking at it.
No. It's fine if you do. I'm not saying you can't. Like, it's against the rules. I'm just saying, like, from your own perspective, because it's always good to, have that, because we're dealing with natural language. We have different views of different words.
Also, something that you can physically test.
Okay. So, be anything empirical. It'd be anything that would kind of fall under, you could use science on it.
Forensic or empirical.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
I was going to say, like I was saying before, a while ago, whenever I did the video, you have certain events that have occurred at certain times, and then other events have occurred that seem to have erased the other events.
What do you mean? Can you give an example? Or
okay, once upon a time there was a forest. Then people burned the forest down, and then they built a city over the forest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you might. I don't know if it's. I suppose over time you might completely obliterate evidence that was there, and so you obviously, if once it's gone, it's gone. Like if you didn't, there's a lot of creatures that don't leave fossils behind for a number of reasons. They have to die in the right condition to get a fossil, basically. So you're gonna have missing creatures. It's like if every time something died, we'd have tons of fossils everywhere, and it'd just be like if every time something died, it immediately fossilized. It'd just be covered with fossils everywhere, because there's a lot of creatures that have been on the Earth. So, trillions and I don't even know how many, like from the beginning of life to now, how many living creatures there are. That's just insane number, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. If you wanted to calculate it, I mean, it's probably an unreal number.
Hey, Chaosism. It's been a long time since I've seen that name.
Whatchamacallit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could, there's estimates of the human population, but I'm just saying, like chickens outpopulate humans right now, so that wasn't true. Like, if you go back further in the past, you wouldn't have as many chickens, but it'd still be, and then of course if you include insects, you're talking just insane numbers at that point.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking of, and I'm just thinking by a controlled sample.
Yeah, right. I'm thinking globally. Right, and then you'd have all the fish stacked up on top of it. it'd be a mess. So yeah, I mean, you can have a what?
You have a lot of fossil fuel.
Maybe. Well, no, because we're saying that it doesn't. If it didn't decay, and it'd be preserved. So yeah, I mean, with evidence decay, it can be the case where it's like, well, there was evidence of this at one point, but then the question would be, well, how is that evidence documented and preserved? Like, did only one person write about it and that was it? Is that all we have to go on? That could be a problem, depending on.
Oh, that actually stems to the other point that I was going to make on the logical fallacies thing, is the appeal to authority.
Yeah.
Because you don't, there's no way, like, say it happens, I don't know, 50 billion years ago. I'm just throwing a number out. I really don't care.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if humans were around. Whatever.
Nothing was around. It's okay. But
the
point I'm
50
saying,
billion years, so the Earth isn't even around.
the thing the person is documenting is accurate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would have to trust that person that they aren't lying or whatever. And I mean, it might be a case where you're just like, well, it's all we have, so it's a question of, is there a reason to doubt it at that point? Maybe
right.
Like, I've said this before, my analogy of Gone with the Wind, where if we didn't know the book was made up, it could pass as a historical event that took place that somebody somehow recorded in detail. Although you'd have to take out some of their narration for it to be more passable in that way, but still, nothing in it is unusual. There's no aliens, there's no people flying around, it's all very mundane. So how would an archaeologist know that it was a book versus that it was just a recording of history? And that's a question a little bit beyond my ability as a logician, but I think we would say, well, it might have happened, but we're going to be skeptical of it. So you just have a null state where it's like, it's at least possible, but that's it. And so when you get to the, paranormal claims like ancient aliens or whatever, since it's like, well, all the evidence was erased. Well, that's great. Well, then then how do you know anything of this happened? It's like, then, you have a different claim that they have to make to substantiate how they know that there was ancient aliens in the first place.
Yeah, I understand that, and I'm thinking about it, like with the I am going to use the Bible for a second, but take for example the claims of the Bible. Never mind the miracles, but just the claims of them, like a certain war or whatever happened at some point in time. How do you know that whole thing that specific war happened?
That's a good question. I mean, unless if you found artifacts of various weapons and then that would be an indication that there had been a battle. It's just that it might be that the numbers, and we do know that a lot of the numbers were exaggerated because we know that there weren't that many Jewish people back in those days, or we have some estimates of how many there would have been. So the numbers just over time get more and more exaggerated because it's cooler. It's a better story that way.
Well, it's also part of the narrative. I understand that, because there is plenty, and I said it before, but there's plenty of exaggeration in there, but the Bible itself isn't 100% literal, so it's,
yeah, well, I mean, because you have to remember, this is an oral story that people are telling each other initially, but long before anything is ever written down. So it's going to get exaggerated to be a more interesting story over time. It's just inevitable. Okay, so then the second thing was logical fallacies and also how to avoid them. And specifically, you want to talk about appeal to consequence, no true Scotsman. I refuse to call it appeal to purity and appeal to authority. But okay, so appeal to consequence is actually more tricky than the other ones to avoid, because there are times when it's hey, yin yang. Yes, that's true, yin yang. That there are times when an appeal to consequence is somewhat valid. Like, okay, if we don't send food to this village in Africa, all these people are going to starve to death. And it's like, okay, so it's completely true. Nothing is being exaggerated and whatnot. So it's like, well, you can't just shrug it off as an appeal to consequence, because you're not invalidating anything. So the appeal to consequence only is true when you're saying, well, because this thing will happen, therefore we must reject the entire rest of the argument. So it's like, well, but if we accept, like evolution is true, then we can't trust our brains because we have the brains of monkeys. And it's like, well, that might be the case for all I know, but that's not a reason to object to the entire argument in full. And so the consequence of, and it might be a good consequence, usually it's not, but whatever the consequence is if you're objecting to the rest of the argument based on that consequence, then that's when it becomes a fallacy. So just saying, well, that person's going to die if we don't do something right now, that's completely, might be valid.
Circumstantial.
It
would be circumstantial.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the search chain. You didn't have anything specific in mind for these, did you? Or
not necessarily.
Okay.
I was just thinking, like, I think that one was more so with the free will thing we were talking about before. But outside of that,
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how free will would or wouldn't intertwine with appeal to consequence, if free will is even a thing in the first place, which is a whole nother. I don't even know. I mean, I'm going to let the scientists figure that out. But so let's say, but okay, so let's say that the scientists discover that free will is an illusion, and then somebody says, well, we can't release that information because then people will do whatever they believe. And it's like, well, there you go. There's the appeal to consequence of, because this bad thing will happen or might happen, that therefore we should conceal the information or whatever. Any other question on that one, or?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. So appeal to purity. No true Scotsman. Better. Yeah, I mean, it's well, I think people are more familiar with with it being called no true Scotsman because yeah, there you go. Define. Well, we're not going to get into free will per se, but yeah, defining it would be a thing if we were going to, get into that. But we're not. I'm not. But yeah, well, Scotsmen are brave. You're not brave, so you're not a Scotsman. And I've talked about this with you, I think, where like the word Christian. Well, what does it mean to, you were talking about, well, how can I make a video about what does it mean to be a Christian?
I was trying to avoid that fallacy. I was trying to look at it and look at it with trying to alleviate the purity problem.
Yeah. Well,
hitting that problem no matter what. So.
Well, you'd have to frame it that this is just your belief, that this is your view, because then it since it's just a belief, you're not making a statement about reality, and therefore you don't have the burden to show anything because it's just you're making it clear. I believe this is how, or this is one way of viewing it. This is what I personally believe, and you can disagree. Whatever, doesn't matter because it's just my belief. And now there's certain things you could throw on there to support that belief or whatever. But of course, you're dealing with theology at that point. So under certain theologies, you're going to be able to make the case that there is a way to view who a Christian is in the Bible. Like there's a list that's like, well, check off this list. And if you see somebody doing all those things, then they're a Christian. And it's like, well, but what if they're not a Christian? It's like, no, if they're doing those things, they are a Christian, even if they're not a Christian. Like if they're doing all the Beatitudes, then that's like a way to identify that their fruits are good and therefore they're a good Christian. And there's also a couple different verses about false prophets. That one of them, and I don't remember where the bleep it is, but one of them was that a false prophet wouldn't use scripture to support their sermon. So, like I had that guy, Bob Barber, who pretended that he knew how to interpret dreams. And I'm like, well, he's clearly a false prophet because he didn't use anything from the Bible to support his ideas at all. So if you're a believer in what the Bible says and you care about it, then you should dismiss him at least on a theological ground, if nothing else.
Well, my thinking is also because you have all these different denominations that say, oh, well, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, that, whatever. There's
right.
a consensus that says, no, you are wrong, right or wrong about this thing because of Scripture.
Well, of course, every denomination tries to do exactly that.
Right. I'm looking at it in the sense of not interpreting it, but saying exactly what it is by what the Bible says instead of.
Yeah, but that's, again, you've run into the same problem is that what you say it says, somebody else will say, but that's not what it says. It's like, well, how can we disagree about, the word is cat. How can we disagree about what cat means? It's like, well, what do you mean by cat? So you get into this whole
it's like a slippery slope also.
It's difficult because although some have told me, and I've run into the rabbit hole of what's it called? Chironetics, I think it is. I think that's the word. I'm probably mispronouncing it, but it's like Bible. It's a way to like supposedly use some sort of system on the Bible that would resolve all those ambiguities. But the thing is, if that existed, then you would think it would be used by every church, and then there wouldn't be all these denominations, or there'd be an agreement upon a central theme rather than a disagreement. But they're not utilizing a scientific methodology to get to their conclusions. They're using their own theology. The Baptists have their own theology. The Presbyterians have their own theology. Everyone has their own flavor of how to approach.
Right. It seems like it's just by their specific interpretation how they.
It is.
And then how they.
And so for the skeptic, of course, that seems to be a problem, because how do I know which one is right, quote unquote? Because
it's kind of like any just looking at any religion, never mind just Christianity in itself.
Yeah, right, exactly. Thank you, Yin Yang. I'm never going to be able to pronounce that word. Hermeneutics. I think that's close. Yeah, whatever. It's close enough. You can pronounce it, Flamey. You know how to say words. but yeah, I mean, it's an impossible thing to win. What was interesting, like with Matt Slick, who runs Carm, Carm.org, Carm Harm as I call it. He declared somewhere on his page, now probably it's gone by now, but he was like I know the true way of looking at the Bible. Like he made that claim, and it's like, really? Like, you're the one, okay? Because I spent so many years, and it's like, I've heard everybody has said the same thing. I've spent this many years of that. It's like, I've spent my entire life, 50 years, whatever. It's like, yeah, everyone makes that claim. So it's
how much years difference?
Yeah, what's the difference? It's like, well, so it's an extra year. Well, that doesn't make any, again, then you're just appealing to, how long you've studied, as if that, changes anything. But there doesn't seem to be a system. Now, maybe you could do a meta-analysis of all the different denominations, or many of them at any rate, and get the things that were similar that they agreed with, and say, well, this is, like a bell curve sort of thing. Yeah.
Kind of difficult because some say you have, like, I know it done a long time ago, did the work righteous system thing. Some say you have to have a work righteous system or you're going to go to hell, and some say no.
Yeah, faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead, and that's a whole debate. Then there's like, I mean, I've seen churches break apart because they couldn't decide on whether or not the music should or shouldn't have strings. So people are kind of petty in that. It's like, why would God care? I mean, it's like, no, it's not that. It's that they care. They want it to be a certain way.
That would be appeal to tradition, appeal to
all that.
Think of it.
So, what does it mean to be a Christian? Like an atheist could hypothetically be a Christian if they're following the teachings of Christ. I mean, even if they didn't believe that Christ was a deity.
Thinking about it, it just does not sit well.
And no, it doesn't. But I mean,
I say it only because, going by what an atheist is, being a person who does not believe in the existence of a god or gods. And Jesus says he's God.
But does he?
That's what I'm looking at.
Right. See, you could say, well, that doesn't mean anything. When he says I am, that's like the closest you get. You could say, well, there's questions about whether or not he actually said that. Or you could just say, yeah, well, I don't care if that's what he said. I'm ignoring that part. I think the rest of the teachings are good, but, I want to follow those for whatever reason, although whether the teachings are good or not, it's debatable, but.
Yeah.
Hermeneutics. There you go. I'm convinced. Something like that. I don't know.
I'm still on.
Yeah, I'm still on this thing. But I'm not sure what yin is unconvinced about it.
I can't see the thing, so.
Oh, could an atheist be a Christian? Well, I think hypothetically they could be, as long as they didn't believe in God. You'd still be technically an atheist. I mean, that's the only requirement. It's like, hey, you could do no true atheist. So it's like, oh yeah, the only thing that you need to do is not believe. That's it. It's like, well, I believe in God. Well, then you're not an atheist. No true Scotsman. No, that's what it is. Sorry, that is a Scotsman at that point. It's not that it's usually you're adding attributes to it. Like to be a true atheist, you have to do X, Y, and Z on top of not believing in God or whatever.
I could see an atheist going by the teachings of a Christian or whatever. I can understand that, but
yeah, you'd be surprised to find how many atheists are in churches that go to church and don't believe in God, but they go to church for the community and for.
And I don't mean that's not the political thing, but just to socialize.
Yeah, it's just a social. Yeah, it's just to be around people. And I met this one guy who I was like, he didn't agree with most of what the pastor said. And I'm like, well, why are you coming here? He's like, I enjoy the people. And I was like, why would you go to a place that teaches stuff that you don't agree with? And it's like, because you like the people. Like,
well, it's almost like going.
I get it, but I don't. I'm like, nah, I don't want to go somewhere where I don't agree with the teaching. For whether I like the people or not.
I could probably talk to them at the store or something.
Yeah, something I could meet them somewhere else. So that's no true Scotsman, I think, to some extent. But yeah, it would be at best you could maybe do a bell curve of what Christians tend to think. But ultimately, if you were to do it, it would have to be, this is my belief, this is my view, and if you make that clear, I'm not going to go after you. Somebody else might because they're going to disagree with you, and that's fine. But it's not like I'm going to make you prove it because I'm just like, yeah, it's your belief. I don't care. Whatever. Appeal to authority. Now, this one is another one of those. what is the person that? No, I'll get to questions in chat later because otherwise I'm going to get distracted. Appeal to authority is a tricky one because, and I think it was Wisecrack, which is a channel on YouTube, was talking about how conspiracies have conspiracy theories have shifted to be like the anti-vaxxers are not trusting in the authority of the doctors. Like they don't have, it's like they for whatever reason they don't trust the authority of the government in whole or the doctors and the scientific studying that's been done on vaccination, and that's possibly one reason they've parted ways with it. And of course, instead of believing in the expert who knows what they're talking about, they believe in nonsense that they find online.
Appeal to false authority there.
Yeah, well, they're appealing to their own. They're basically saying that I can't. It's like, well, yeah, sure, the doctor says it's good, but obviously I know more than the doctor because the doctor's being paid by the government, and the government's out to get us all, and or whatever their thing is. So that's kind of one bad thing that's happened with questioning authority, which is fine to question authority, but
well, you had it set up. It was like also a non sequitur.
yeah, but I mean, if your doctor tells you something, you can always get a second opinion.
Oh, definitely.
But when every single doctor that's out there, pretty much, I mean, there might be a handful that tell you not to get vaccinated, but when every single one is saying, no, yeah, get vaccinated, then it's probably I think at that point,
it's a good idea.
It might be a good idea. There's appeal to irrelevant authority, false authority, anonymous authority, all these things, and it becomes the fallacy if and only if you say this is true because the police said that I ran the red light, so I ran the red light. Like, well, but the camera shows I didn't run the red light. It doesn't matter. The police said it, and the police is the authority. And it's like, so that's basically one way to look at it. But here's a question for you to mull over. How would you define a commandment from God? Would that be is the ultimate authority? And said, do it. So is doing it the right thing to do because because God's an authority, or is there a different reason why you should do what it told you to do?
I feel like I heard a similar question to that before. Long time.
So now you're gonna have to think about that.
Like the moral argument, I think.
Well,
I think so. Is it good because God says it's good, or is God good because?
That's the Ether-3 dilemma. I can't pronounce that word. Yin Yang knows what I'm talking about. The dilemma, the weird, Euro.
Talked with Yin Yang about that before. I don't remember every single conversation, but I think I talked to him.
Yeah. There it is. There's the word. Yeah. No. Just, oh goodness, I can't word. That's it. Yin Yang knows you through flow. You through flow dilemma. But anyways, so it's like, well, God said it, that settles it. It's like, well, look, no, not really, because you can't. It's just, well, because it's an authority. Well, yeah, but that's not logical. There has to be more to it than just that. There has to be a better reason than just saying, well, because it's in charge of her. It's like, look, wink me out of existence then if you're going to do that, but whatever, that doesn't make what you told me to do a good idea. So.
Well, looking at the same way you had with the traffic light example, you could also look at it like the commandment saying "Thou shalt not kill." You can compare that to basically society as we have seen it. How
Well, the thing is, it depends on how you word that. If it's now don't kill, then you can't kill at all, no matter what, under any condition.
you're right. Murder is what I mean by that.
Yeah, but yeah, right. So but now you've created this loophole where, well, murder is anything that the state considers illegal. Well, if the state doesn't consider anything illegal, then you can never break that commandment. Of course, I don't want to live in that society because I'd be scared.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, you got a phone call. No, because I said throw. You threw fro. You threw fro. I wish I could pronounce words. I really do. Yin Yang and Brian Stevens and Chaosism. They're all here. People are here. Let's see. Sup. What was the question that I missed? What does a person that does not say a god exists? Oh wait, I can't even read now. What is a person that does not say a god either does and or does not exist, but it simply says they're unconvinced that said god exists? That'd be agnostic. Although, see, that's the weird thing about agnostic is that there was the more.
It's more based on knowledge than.
Yeah, there was also the version that was like
you can't know.
You make the claim that you can't know whether there's a god or not, and I'm not sure that that's used anymore.
Probably the better term, to be honest with you.
Yeah, mostly listening, getting ready to go round 2 on day stuff. Okay, well, if you win that fight, Brian, then that will be good, I guess. So, how to avoid them, to wrap that bit up, would be, well, just try to, just try to remember some of them. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of them. You're not going to remember all of them, but just if you have a basic understanding, I think, of logic, then you're going to do better than if you don't.
Well, I was thinking about the authority thing because I know, like, Yin Yang, since he's here, I can mention him. He's asked me, like, to bring in some PhD papers or some consensuses and whatever.
Mm.
And that's a whole different thing. And I've asked him, I don't know if he's ever responded about that.
I don't know what you're talking about. You got to be more specific, man.
I'm saying, I don't remember exactly the conversation. I just remember him asking me about consensus and PhD papers for whatever we're talking about.
Well, it depends on the subject. That if you're saying, look, I need to, what type of dialogue are you in? That would be good to figure that out. If you said, well, something about evolution or some science,
somewhere and I feel like you're still appealing to authority if you're saying, oh, well, you're going to go by such and such scientist.
No, because it's a difference between it's true because authority said it. No, he's not saying that. He's saying we're going to use these sources because they know what they're talking about.
Well, the way I'm seeing it is like, because I know you and some other people have said, like, and I'm just using them as an example, answers in Genesis, that you can say you have PhDs in that as opposed to PhDs in other places. So
yeah, they do have PhDs, but when you look at what it is they produce, they don't produce anything scientific in regards to any of their claims about creation. They can't, because the peer review rejects it. It's not science. What they're doing is not science. If you read, they write articles and blogs, and if you look at the careers of these people, you see that they have maybe one published paper, one citation, or something really ridiculously low. So you can tell that they failed in that job. So that speaks volume. If you had a doctor, for an analogy, you had a doctor who all but one of his patients died, and then that doctor joins creationism to be like, yeah, biology proves God. It's like, well, you're not being a doctor. You weren't a very good doctor to begin with. Why are we listening to you now? Like, so it's not.
Like I said, I was just using them as two opposite sides of the scale. So,
But there isn't though. That's the thing.
Just I'm looking at it as an authority. I'm using that as an example, but
yeah, but you yeah, but if you have a guy that's the S.J. Thompson had a guy, what was he, a microbiologist, that's promoting old Earth creationism. He's like an ID proponent, sort of. And my question that I kept repeating in chat, which finally got asked, sort of, was, how many papers has he published and peer reviewed? And she asked it a different way, but the answer was one. He worked at Procter and Gamble, and during that time, he produced one paper in his field. So he failed. He sucks at science. And so for him to go and get a job with or start up a creation sort of thing, there's money to be made there, whereas you can't make money doing the science. So you can, however, make money on people that want to believe in intelligent design, because they don't care about the science. They want to be told that they're right.
No, I understand that. I was thinking, like I said, I was just using that as an example, trying to look at two different sides of two different authorities that conflict with each other, for the same purpose that you're talking about.
Well, it's not. You might find, if you can find an expert on biology and that believes that doesn't believe or agree with biological evolution, and all you have to do is say, okay, great, what's your evidence? And they don't have any, and what they have is non-science, then the other one automatically just wins. There's not even an argument to be made. I get what you're saying is like, well, but I want these two people to go battle and see who wins. Well, the one guy doesn't even qualify to get into the ring, let alone know how to fight, let alone have a boxing permit, and he hasn't even trained to be a boxer, and the other guy is a heavyweight champion. So it's just not. There is no argument. The other guy won before it even started. But I understand the desire that we would like to see things have. That's why there's debate, formal and informal debate between people and creationists, is because they're like, no, look, here's what the reality is. Here's the science. And instead of fighting that with science, they're like, well, here's the woo. And it's like, yeah, that's nice, but that's not science. So the truth is what the truth is. So there isn't another side. It's just the way that one is. There might be some other topic where you'd find more balance, but for biological evolution, it's like I don't know that we're more sure about anything. Maybe math,
Of course. Well, I was thinking about that math. I don't even know if math would be considered science, and science is an open concept.
Yeah, math is a science. Math.
I mean, yes, it is, but I mean, it's a closed at the same time. But it's open.
I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole. Okay, so truth versus ideals. Which is the best for deciding our goals? So that's a very. I have. Okay, so truth being what in this?
What is actually true?
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Let's see what I can. So I'm trying to keep it distinct from ideals, because.
Yeah. So what is true? What does it mean to be X is true? What does that mean?
Where it is in complete agreement with reality and is completely feasible. Something.
Okay.
100% obtainable.
Right. So you might not know that it's you might say something that's not true, but you believe it's true, but it's not true, right? Would that be?
Not be true right now, but it can be true. It could be an obtainable goal. But I'm looking at it in the sense like saying, I'm trying to not to think of something that's too.
Well, here the analogy would be okay. Like you might say 7 times 7 is 55, and that's not. You might think it's true, but it in reality it wouldn't. It's not truth. So so your goal is to find the truth, whatever the truth might be.
Basically, yes.
Okay. And then ideals, well, what's an ideal?
Something like a goal that you want to achieve that's not necessarily something that's completely feasible.
Nope. Another call from Outright Lie. Hey, how's it going? Tell them we're not taking any today. Yeah, you got to mute yourself. Go take your phone call. I'll talk to the people in chat.
It's some BS number.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, truth is what comports with reality. I tend to agree with that. I mean, truth is interchangeable with what's real, I would say. Same thing. But so an ideal, well, how can you chase an ideal if the ideal is not true? Is that even possible?
You can say you're trying to obtain basically, we'll say we could use a world peace as an example, where everyone agrees with everyone. We have no wars, no more strife, and all this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an ideal
that you strive for.
Yeah, that you could strive for that could still hypothetically be true at some point in time, but it's not true. Definitely not true right now. So, but then the question you're presenting is, what's best for deciding our goal? So, what's a goal? It's something you want to get to or get towards, right? You might not actually achieve the goal, but you're aiming at the goal. So you're running the race, but you die halfway through, but at least you were running the damn race, right?
With a broken leg, but yeah.
Yeah. Or there's people that, fall down and everyone else helps them to cross the finish line, which is always great to see. Yeah. So I guess my answer would be that deciding truth versus ideal, if you're going to put that as some sort of dichotomy, you seem to be suggesting that ideals might not necessarily be true. But I don't think that is what you're suggesting. Is that correct?
Those may not be something you can't obtain, where something that is true is something that one is obtainable, but is also, I'm trying to think of the ways to best explain this, but
it could become true, but it's not true today.
I guess that's something I'm going with that, yeah.
Like your world peace thing is like, yeah, that hypothetically could be true. Now, but then there's a problem, perhaps. Well, you could achieve world peace by killing all humans.
Well, then you wouldn't have peace. You'd have pieces.
Well, but there's no more war because there's no one to fight it. Well, the animals would still fight each other, but you could kill them off too. And if you wiped out all life, then there's no more war at all, right? So we got it. We achieved peace. Everyone's dead. Everything's dead. But of course, that that's not exactly what you were aiming for.
It was kind of cool to stay alive. At least one or two people stayed alive. Who knows?
Well,
Adam and
Eve. Yeah, right. But to try to answer your question as far as which one is best, I think that they're both go hand in hand. I don't think there's a dichotomy there, because if your ideal has to have a truth to it. Otherwise, you can't pursue something that, or I guess you could pursue something that isn't, but what would be the point? Now, maybe you don't know that the thing that you're pursuing doesn't really exist. Like, I've got this car that's, free, and you have to do, all this stuff to get it. And,
I'm free.
Yeah, and it was like, well, it's not really free. It was, look. It's technically free. It's just you have to do all these crazy things to get it. And it's like, well, you know.
You have to define what you mean by free, and I'm guessing
Yeah, exactly.
free isn't you pay no currency for it.
What's the ideal? Oh, okay, so yin yang. What's the ideal? No, we'll get to your question, Wildheart. That's a good question. What's the ideal girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, etc.? Yeah, what's the ideal? Like in your mind, you have a picture of okay, this would be how this person would be ideally or whatever. Now, obviously, that person probably doesn't exist, and so but you have to find somebody that maybe is somewhere close to that or what have you. So I think that the two, I don't think the two are in a dichotomy opposed to each other. I think the two go hand in hand. So the answer to your question, what's best for deciding your goals or our goals, is both.
Personally, I just think truth is better to
Oh,
go.
well, I would agree there. I think truth is more valuable than anything.
Like,
But I do think that if you have an ideal like that is hypothetically achievable, or even if it's not, but it could happen. It's a good thing, like world peace. Obviously, you've got to add more to it than just world peace, because you also have to say world peace that does not include the killing of all living creatures, or whatever. But
all the problems that humans conflict with.
yeah, it's like if you imagine that you get your wish from the genie, but you're worried that the genie is going to take you too damn literally, so you're like writing out meticulously your wish so that it's non-ambiguous. Like, okay, and then like I want $1 million, okay, but it's not tax free, or it came from a bank. No, okay, look, I want $1 million tax free. That
Out for like 20 million people.
Yeah, right. So I think that answered that one to some extent, unless you had more that you wanted to nuance out on that one, or
I don't know. I think as far as that goes, I mean, we can go back and forth on that.
I mean, obviously, there's always going to be more to talk about these things. I'm just trying to get through
Right.
different topics. All of the above. Well, how do we talk about that? No, wait, that's the list that nobody else is seeing. None of the above. Yeah. Wait. Undo this whole thing. Repeat the question, please. Repeat the question, please. Repeat the question. Oh, God. Okay, anyway. So let me, Wildheart 666, where the laws of logic come from? Well, that's a question I can answer. I don't know if Grave has his own answer. That might, I don't know. Do you have a stab at that one? Or do you remember from what you've learned so far? Or?
Honestly, I would say, like time, logic has basically always existed. Because it's an abstract concept that we learned.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're pinning that time, the moment that there's a time, then there could be laws of logic. I would.
Well, say like back before anything was, nothing was.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, okay.
But yeah, if we're assuming that
zero is going to be zero.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, but if there was such a thing, then you would. If you had an absolute nothing, there would be no laws of logic, because laws of logic are a
by the law of identity.
Yeah, well, there's no identity because there is nothing. So there'd be no laws of logic or anything else. But
no laws of physics, really. But there'd be
there's no laws of. If you have an absolute nothing, then there are no laws. There's no rules, because those would be things. So the moment you say no, nothing plus nothing equals nothing, it's like, no, that's a rule. That makes it something. So there, but I don't think there was or could be an absolute.
But I mean, like saying before there was an atom, there were no atoms, basically.
Well, it might be, but there comes a point where we just hit a wall where we just don't know. But regardless, what we do know is that whatever it would be like to not have atoms is not a existence that we could apply the logic that we understand to necessarily. Now, some of it might still apply, but not all of it. But we don't know because we don't have that to examine. So my answer to where the laws of logic come from is, well, the question's kind of malformed. They don't come from anywhere. They map to the universe as we understand the universe. So
also, I would say time doesn't exist, or I shouldn't say time doesn't exist. Time doesn't have a beginning, so.
Well, it kind of does, but I mean, it gets you know, you get into cosmology and it gets really complicated. So I'm not going to go there, but it doesn't matter for the answer. For the answer of logic is that the rules of logic or the laws of logic map to reality. Now, if you find that they don't map to reality, then they change, just like science would change. So it's highly unlikely that would happen, but you know, it could happen.
I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was funny. Again, now I'm reminded of Matt Slick, probably because I just want to promote my older videos or something. I don't know, but but when I talked to him and I said that, you know, like if we discovered tomorrow that the moon is in fact made of green cheese, that would change a whole bunch of things. So how could we have been so wrong about this? You know, it would just completely. It would be insane what kind of changes that would cause. And I said, so it is possible that under that scenario, that logic itself would also have to change to conform to the new reality. And Matt Flick's like, well, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, then, you know, anything, it's all gibberish because things, if it can change, then that means it's you know, then it's all gibberish. And this is kind of the misunderstanding that sometimes people have with science, that like they go, well, I can't trust it because today it says this, but tomorrow it might say that. It's like, no, that's why you can trust it, is because it can change when new evidence is gathered or understood better than what we understand it now. And logic's the same way, although with logic it's a little bit easier because we have certain underpinnings of variables that and formulas that we can graph out and show the logic gates and all this. It's very much like very close to mathematics in that sense, where the formulas just work. And you know, if something extraordinary happened where the universe is different, then obviously we would have to have a different logic and science to go with that difference. But for Slick, he's like, well, that just means it's all nonsense. And like, yeah, well, whatever.
Because you're talking about a person not believing or trusting science because it changes. Then you don't disregard science as a whole. You have to disregard whatever the theory at the time was instead.
Yeah, well, but that's a nuanced view.
Well, you're not denouncing science. You're denouncing whatever the theory was.
Yeah. Is it possible to know something that is true which could actually be false, not according to the definition of true that we gave, which was that it's whatever is real? So in that case, it would be the answer would be no. You know, it could be that again, with the moon being actually cheese, would be like, well, you know, it became cheese, like it wasn't cheese up until that moment, you know. Then it's like, well, now you know that it's cheese, you know, and it would of course break into pieces, and you know, all sorts of crazy stuff would go on with the ocean, and you know, is it possible a fact could be proven wrong or could not be true? Is that a possibility? No, because if it's a fact, it's true. But what could happen is you'll learn more about the information and you understand it better than you do now. So you add on to the knowledge. Huh?
or you can just understand the fact more, like in more nuanced.
Yeah.
You previously did.
Yin Yang's got a bunch of questions. I don't know if they're aimed at me, you, or both of us. But okay, so what would happen without transcendent rules, laws of logic? I'm not sure about the transcendent rules. I can't speak to that. Without the laws of logic, that's a good question. There are logicians that have suggested that some of the laws of logic might be flawed. And like the way that they come about that just depends, but ultimately you're what you're trying to do is you're trying to make a new system of logic is all you're doing. You're saying, I don't like these rules, I want these rules instead. But you still have to have rules, it's just different rules now. But the one that I remember, and I wish I could find the book again because I wanted to actually get it, was A does not equal A or something like that. And the guy was making a point about if you look at it a certain way, the law of identity isn't true because the A that's over here is not the A that's over there because that A is not in the same place at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what the law of identity is talking about anyways. It's like, well, yeah, but the thing is not that the identity of that object is never that object because that object is always changing. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter because so it's like I get what he was trying to say, and of course I'm paraphrasing probably because I don't have the book or anything. But again, it's just like, well, it's a different way to try to think about what the law of identity is. And of course, you have the whole ship analogy where with the I always forget the damn name of the ship, but the ship goes out to sea and breaks apart and you replace it slowly and you get to the other side, and is it the same ship that left? Yes, I don't know.
Well, if you're saying it's the same ships that left, I'd probably say no, but it's still a ship.
It's a ship, and then you rebuild the old ship, but then that means that you're not you because almost every cell that's been you in the past however many years is now gone. So the you that was
different topic. It's a false equivocation because we're more than just a mechanical object.
Are we?
Yeah, we can first off we have our own thought. So
yeah, but those thoughts will change when you acquire new information. But you're not the you that existed when you were 5.
Oh yeah,
that you doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I'm different. That's
right. Fine. But so you're not that person. Therefore, you're not you. You're a different you. You think the laws of logic would be simpler? No. Well, I mean, there's 3. There's the law of identity, the excluded middle, and false dichotomy. Oh dear. My brain decided it was going to go turn off. Yeah, composition division fallacy. Yeah, false dichotomy. Close enough. I'm going to pretend I was right. bad being converted, man. You don't remember. Look, yeah, I got a lot of things in my brain.
But
can God be God and not God simultaneously? Yeah, that's basically the law of identity, is that whatever the thing is what that thing is. So there's a Flamey, and that's what Flamey is. Flamey can't be an apple because that's not what Flamey is. So, it's like I've got I wish I had a webcam so I could like play with my toys and show you those as examples. I was like, I've got a Pikachu. The Pikachu is not, it's not a cat because cats are cats and they're not Pikachu. So, non-contradiction. There it is. Thank you. Law of non-contradiction. I said that. Excluded middle, non-contradiction, and identity. Those are the 3 laws of robotics. Wait, I mean logic, whatever. Let's see. Well, we covered all the things plus some more. You've been thinking a lot about stuff. I think that's really good. I've always wanted to encourage you to do that. It's been something I've been impressed with, that you're trying to come up with new arguments for God or Christianity or whatever because you still believe these things.
Yeah, even though this one guy I was working with came up with a great argument. He asked, "What about dinosaurs?"
Yeah.
to,
What
be,
about them?
to be fair, he was a teenager, but still.
Well, what about dinosaurs?
Oh, if God exists, why did if something like there's a thing either God exists or dinosaurs existed.
That doesn't sound like a good argument.
I can't remember how
Well,
weeks ago.
huh?
I don't remember how he mentioned it because it was a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, well. Well, I guess you have to, like with my brother, his answer of why he believes in God is that he just does. He doesn't really he knows that there isn't, any of the skeptical things that we want, but he still believes anyways, and it's like, well, it's probably just how his brain works at this point. I don't know. I wouldn't want him to hurt his brain to try to not think that there's a God or something, but I don't know. So we can't, from the outside looking in, we can't know what it's like to have your beliefs. But what I'm always encouraged by is that even if you're going to hold on to a God belief, you've at least learned and are learning about logic and science. And so if there is a God, you're discovering the real God rather than, an illusionary God.
Well, yeah, and I know I've made the analogy 20 million times before, but it's basically I do that. I know I hyperbolize a lot, but looking at it like with I hate using the watch, but using like a car or whatever, you have a
mm-hmm.
mechanical
Mm-hmm.
way of understanding how the thing became what it is. Like the car, you can find a description on how to recreate the car,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have some guy who made the car.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to necessarily find, I mean, probably with forensics you will, but you're not going to find out who made the car just looking at science.
You might be able to.
Looking at it in that sense. So, and I'm saying if you look at it also with, and I know I made this mentioned before, but about even if the world, or not the world, even if the universe did evolve, like in stellar evolution,
Mm-hmm.
not dismiss God in that sense. So God still.
Yeah, no, you can posit God as an explanation and accept every other science that's out there and say, well, God's ultimately the thing behind all of it. But you still, it is a belief. It's not something. Well, I mean, you might believe, I don't know, that it's something that you can ground in any sort of, you're trying to find an argument for it, and maybe you will. I don't know. I doubt, but that you ever will because I tried. But maybe you'll be able to do what I wasn't able to do when I was a Christian. And whatever direction your journey takes, I want to just encourage you to keep learning. That's my main thing.
What I saw.
Have you ever attempted to calculate how little of the opposing worldview would would need to be true to falsify your worldview? Yin Yang asks.
I have not. I have not tried to calculate it.
Well, I think he's kind of like doing like a street epistemology on you. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's tough to question what we hold most dear. I'm yeah. Now, if I was to answer the question, I don't know that I could put any sort of percentages or whatever to it, but
value on it.
I'm not even sure what the opposing worldview to skepticism would be, or if skepticism is a worldview. I guess it would be accepteeism or something where you just accept everything as true. That would be what was that philosophy called? Truism. That was what it would be. I love truism. It's the most absurd thing of all time that I've ever run across. What's truism? It's where everything is true. But well, what if I say truism is false? Yep, that's true too. It's like, what?
I'm thinking, what about all the false things?
Yeah, those are true. Those are true too. Yeah, with truism, everything is true.
Well, then apparently we have a boat.
What the bleep is this? Oh, this is good. Oh yeah, I'm going to be reading this later. Oh good, look, it's symbols. I haven't seen those in a while. Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. Oh yeah. Okay, sorry, I read this PDF. All right, let's save that. Who sent me that? That was Brian, wasn't it? Who gave me that? Yeah, Brian. Thanks, Brian. I'm gonna have fun reading that, and my brain's gonna hurt. Okay, so anything else that was on your mind or that you wanted to talk about, Flamey, or?
Can't think of anything else.
All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this. This was interesting. I enjoy talking to you, and like I said, keep doing, keep learning, and whatever it is, hopefully, it might just be in the end that your brain, is unable to, stop believing in God or whatever, and I'm okay with that because I don't care. So what I want and what I've always wanted.
Probably so what?
yeah. I was like, whatever. I don't care. Is that if we learn logic, that's my main thing, and to always be willing to question what we hold most dear. And I think that you have gotten a lot better at that than when we first met. So.
I questioned it a long time ago. And actually before.
Yeah, but you're doing better now.
And actually, I hadn't always been a Christian, so it's not like I.
Yeah. All right, dude. All right. Does anyone want to join in this thingy or this chat here, or should I just throw the link in there and see what happens? Hi, by reason. What reason? Oh, left a like can't say have a nice day. By coincidence, stream seems to be over anyways. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to wrap it up or continue it indefinitely. I don't know what I should do. No mic. That's right. Brian has no mic. Wildheart has. I don't know. I don't think they have a mic. It's probably really late for Yin Yang or early. So yeah. But you know what, guys, gals, robots, if any of you wants to schedule a talk with me and talk about whatever the bleep it is you want, just email me or Twitter at me. My Twitter is deconvertedman and my email is deconvertedman1 because I accidentally registered deconvertedman and then things happened and Google fucked me, and so now I'm deconvertedman1. Anyways, so thanks everybody, and thanks Flame, and I'll let you say one thing and then or say something, and then I'll say my thing, and then we'll end this insanity.
All right. Well, y'all have a good day.
All right. Well, lobsters exist. There you go.
Sure. We'll go
we can all agree on that.
Hopefully.
Yeah.